Hi, I'm Danny, and in this video I'm going to be talking to you about an autoethnography of remote cycling platform that I did during the pandemic. So I did this research for over 6 months between March and August 2020, during which time I cycled for over 30 hours and over 1,000 kilometers on Zwift, which is an online cycling platform. And I did all of this in my kitchen, as you can see in this picture. So I fully immersed myself into all aspects of this cycling community. I participated in scheduled group rides, I used online voice chat, I used the social media communities, and importantly, I recorded all of my interactions and use of this system. So you may be wondering what remote exercise platforms actually are. The most popular of these, which is something you've probably seen adverts for at least, is Peloton. So Peloton offers a number of different activities. Cycling is probably the most popular of these, and the experience of cycling on Peloton is really akin to a spin class or something that would traditionally take place in a gym, but it allows you to do it from your own home, sort of following along. Instead, Zwift, which also works in your own home, more closely replicates outdoor cycling. So I've actually used Zwift for about 5 or 6 years, maybe a little bit longer at this point. I was originally a beta tester for the platform, and I do have a fair amount of experience of using it, but importantly, I've never really looked at group riding before. So things I have done, more like free riding, which you can see me here with my son when he was about 3 months old, I think. So this is, as it sounds, just letting you go for a ride around one of the environments that they offer. They also offer training. So in this example, I'm following along with a pace partner who's riding a particular amount of effort. They also offer more structured training where you would follow a program. And they also offer racing, which is probably one of the most popular things that people do on Zwift. It receives a lot of press. In this example, I'm not actually racing, I'm just doing a sprint on a group ride. To be honest, I'm not really that interested in racing. I'm not a particularly competitive person, but I do enjoy talking to people, occasionally at least, and I enjoy cycling. So the group rides that they offer are very interesting for me. So these are, generally speaking, something that's arranged by community members. It's not arranged centrally by the platform, so it's very much sort of volunteer driven, but it really does provide a nice opportunity to bring people together for sociability as well as for exercise. So at the beginning of the pandemic, this looked like something that would be very interesting to focus on. So within this video, I'm going to be talking you through my findings. So my setup for Zwift and group rides, people's understanding of Zwift and the data, people's experience of riding the group, virtual exercise within a pandemic, community, and the challenges that people experience to using this platform. So first off, setting up the hardware and software and getting the most out of Zwift group rides. So at its most basic level, to use Zwift, you need something to ride on, which is generally a bike, be that a static trainer or a bike on top of a trainer, and something to run the Zwift software on. So that could be an Apple TV, it could be a laptop, it could be an iPad, it could even be a phone. There's many different options for that. And then on top of that, there are a number of other options. So Zwift Chat can run on the Zwift Mobile Link app, which helps you more easily participate in chat during rides. And Discord, which is a voice chat system, also can work alongside Zwift, and it's something that a lot of people use in the rides that I was participating in. Offers a better social experience, and it basically allows you to talk to the other people who you're riding with, so that was pretty common. Facebook groups are also a really big part of the online community, so they use this for various sort of social support, asking questions. There are also ride reports after every ride. People comment on them, they talk about experiences during the ride. Another thing that a lot of people do is share their rides on Strava. So you can share your Zwift ride to Strava just as you would an outdoors ride that you might record on your Garmin. You can look through the stats and everything, and importantly, there are also community aspects to this. So a lot of people follow other people on Strava, give them kudos, support each other, do comments, etc. Broadcasting rides on Twitch is something else that a lot of people did, so I joined in that as well and had a few people commenting on that. quickly talk you through my Zwift setup. So I have a microphone over to the left for recording notes and participating in the Discord voice chat. I've got a webcam on top of the monitor there, which was mostly used for streaming on Twitch, but as you'll see throughout this video, I basically had it running the whole time. And then I have Zwift running on the main monitor in the middle there. Looking a little bit more closely, I've got OBS running on my laptop. So again, this was for recording the rides and it was for streaming the rides on Twitch. And that's also where I took lots of notes. Tried doing notes with a pen and paper afterwards, didn't really work. Also had a sweatproof keyboard, which was very important to text during the ride, and a stream deck, which was used for managing broadcasting, muting my mic, that sort of thing. So in terms of the Zwift interface itself, it's something that's very data driven and gives people a lot of data. So top left shows you data about the rider, panel in the middle has got more data about the ride. Over to the other side, we've got a map that shows the closest 100 riders, and then the right panel lists nearby riders, and you can see at the bottom there how many people are in the group. The yellow beacon shows the ride leader, which I'll come on to in a moment, and the ride leader can also send messages to the entire group, so this would pop up in the middle of everyone's screen. Looking at the top panel a little more closely, you can see the rider's power, cadence, which is how quickly they're pedaling, then their heart rate, and then the middle shows the speed, current distance, ride progress, and distance remaining. So this is obviously a lot of data, and a lot of riders aren't used to having so much data provided to them when they're riding. It can be quite confusing, and you kind of do need to interact with some of these things. So watts per kilogram, which is a division of watts produced over the rider weight, basically says how fast you're going to be riding, and it's essential to fully understanding Zwift and Zwift group rides, which I'll come on to a little more in 1 second. So choosing an appropriate ride can be difficult, partially because there's so many options to choose from, but also because of that watts over kilograms. So there are different groups within Zwift that denote how fast you're going to ride, which is quite difficult for beginners to understand. So I filtered out to the slowest 2 groups here to find a pack ride. And once you've found that ride, you can see lots of guidance, rules, pace. However, because the pace is quite difficult to follow, many riders do pick something that's inappropriate, which can leave them worn out before they've even started, and it can be quite confusing. So as the quote here shows, sometimes people find beginner rides too easy, they go off the front, and then they use the next ride up, and they find it too hard and they get dropped easily. So this is partially due to picking a ride that's inappropriate, and partially because they can sometimes struggle to follow ride etiquette and cycle at an appropriate pace. So we have different people with different roles who are volunteering within these rides. So we have leaders and sweeps, and the leader is basically responsible for managing the ride, setting the pace, and making sure that people are cycling at the planned pace. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't follow the planned pace. So these people are called flyers, and they generally are people who ignore the pace, race off the front, and end up splitting the group, which according to many does ruin the ride. We also have sweeps who are at the back of the main group, and their job is basically to provide some encouragement and help people that might fall off of the back of the main group. It also allows riders to draft them. So if you have a technical problem or you otherwise struggle to keep up, you can follow one of these people and join back onto the main part of the group. So focusing a little bit more on the COVID pandemic and people's use of Zwift within it. So before lockdown started, platforms and traditional in-person clubs were starting to warn us about what was going to be happening. This was before we entered the first version of lockdown, and then we all know what happened with lockdown, and we could only go out for exercise once per day. But before this, people were starting to move online. So during my first ride, I chatted to someone who had leukemia, was taking immunosuppressants, so wanted to play it safe and just use Zwift instead of going out. Another person with a sports injury clinic did the same thing, and these virtual rides allowed these people to continue cycling without the risks of going outside. A lot of other traditional groups also moved online at this point. And soon Zwift saw record numbers of concurrent users. So in March, it was showing nearly 20,000 users. Then everyone bought a turbo train, you couldn't buy them anymore. And then within a week or two, it's up to nearly double that amount. So it grew massively. And online groups also grew massively. So the group that I was cycling in went from having maybe 30 or 40 riders on a general evening to having sort of 200 or 300 and actually over 1,000 at one point, which was pretty big. But this meant that a lot of newcomers weren't really following the rules. Initially, this caused quite a lot of controversy and frustration amongst more established members, but it soon turned out that these people weren't following the rules because they didn't understand, and the community rallied around to help them. So this role of community and being socially connected was really something that was key throughout. And people were saying that these rides and the chat that was happening was really something that was key during lockdown. In pandemic, many people were feeling isolated and they were heading to Zwift not just for exercise, but also to help them be a bit more connected. People were particularly enjoying using Discord, which is what allows you to do the voice chat, and saying that it was really sort of helping them stay connected with different people. And of course, there was sort of lots of typical chatter going on there during the pandemic. So people were talking about Tiger King, someone else was replanting grass seed on their lawn, had a lot of talk about that, and people were sharing cake and banana bread recipes, of course. So there was a sort of this additional channel for chat that other people sort of were really appreciating. However, there was also a lot of talk about setting up group rides, about the different things that you needed to get set up, such as Discord, and people using WhatsApp instead of Discord because they couldn't get it working, and then people sort of facing other technical difficulties with their bikes or their trainers or other aspects of their setup. And the community really sort of rallied around and helped each other here, which was very interesting and lovely to see. So one of the big things that Zwift and other remote exercise platforms promises is that there's a lot more flexibility in your cycling because you can do it from home. However, because these group rides that people wanted to participate in were often scheduled at a particular time, it often didn't actually work for people. So people would find that they had to do, or they could do part of the ride and they had to jump off for having dinner with their family. They found other things were happening in their homes, so they had to stop because their children were fighting. And if you stop and you drop off the main part of the pack, you kind of forfeited that ride because it's very difficult to join again. So what have we learned? Remote exercise platforms can be beneficial, support online communities. However, there is this steep learning curve to understanding and setting everything up, and users have to mesh these multiple ecosystems to support successful communities. So as next steps, I'm going to be looking at some other platforms and different types of exercise beyond cycling, and I'm going to look at ways to move beyond the numerical data alone that people felt very difficult to follow, and looking at building communities for other people who feel unable to participate in traditional exercise. Thank you.